Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you, sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure to the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'm going to start it off in Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And these were the signs that Yahushai, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, told his disciples to look for, to know that they were, living in the end times before his second coming and before, the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. China and Taiwan, Venezuela and the U.S., Russia, Ukraine, NATO, Iran, Israel. For nation shall rise against nation. Racial conflicts out here. Look at that situation with that Ukrainian refugee girl on the train. Those few so-called black men getting lynched in Mississippi. And kingdom against kingdom. These major nations going against each other. You just had Canada, France, Australia, and I think a few other nations. I don't know if it was Australia, but I know Canada, France, and Britain. Hey, they just symbolically recognized, a Palestinian state, which runs in direct conflict to what? The U.S. and the state of Israel. And then this can also play into the wars and rumors of wars. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And in 2025, there's been about 500,000 earthquakes globally in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And if you have a spiritual eye and ear open, you can see that all these things are either in the process of taking place or taking place as we speak. And there will be famines to come, which, they're already starting. There's a humanitarian crisis, and it's been labeled a famine over in Gaza. And pestilences are going to come as well, which we got a taste of that with 2019 to 2021. But what's coming down the pipeline is going to be even worse than that, because we're living in the times of the great judgment of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai on this planet for all the wickedness being committed by you people, especially in the United States of America, which when everything's said and done is going to be ground zero, the cherry on top for the judgments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. And this brings me to this article on the mostimportantnews.com. As another major terror alert is issued, we should be asking if America is ready for a bioterrorism crisis that could potentially delete millions. The theists that shoot people and blow things up aren't the real threat. We can handle the small-scale stuff. What we should really be concerned about are the theists that are thinking much bigger. If theists cook up a highly contagious pestilence in a lab and release it in multiple U.S. cities, it would instantly paralyze our society, and the deletion toll could potentially be in the millions. Unfortunately, we live at a time when there have been exponential advances in the field of biotechnology. Our ability to create deadly pestilences is far greater than our ability to control them. And once something extremely contagious gets released in our major population centers, it will be exceedingly difficult to stop it from spreading. Hey, as we just read Matthew chapter 24, there will be pestilences. And actually, when we go to, I'll get this real quick. Because remember what it said, millions could be at risk of deletion. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 5, verse 1. Nevertheless, as coming the tokens, behold, the days shall come, that they which dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number, and the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. The famine of the word, where the men of the Lord are no longer going to be on the highways and byways, and these video epistles aren't going to be online, which we can see that's right around the corner. You had multiple 1948er companies have a hand with the U.S. and creating a algorithm with TikTok to where it'll I think it's through Oracle. Oracle's one of the means they're going to use, which is going to scan information on there to see if it qualifies as hate speech or anti-simulationism. And then look what's going on in the wake of Captain Kirk's deletion. All this talk of censorship and hate speech and people getting fired, you name it. But what else did it say? The days shall come that they which dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number. Hey, their minds being taken by all these deceptions that are going to come out here, and then also people physically being taken from this earth. Mass deletions. Over the weekend, a number of people were alarmed by something that Laura Loomer posted on her Twitter account on Friday. Must read: an urgent alert. NCTC confirms ALQ presence on U.S. soil. Imminent multi-city Islamic tea attacks. Sources tell me tonight that the National Counter-Teaism Center has officially determined that Islamic Teists affiliated with ALQ have infiltrated U.S. soil and are actively planning a series of coordinated Islamic tea attacks. This marks the first time federal counter-Teaism officials have openly acknowledged the immediacy of such threats, signaling a potential escalation in domestic jihadists activity not seen since the height of the IS-inspired plots in the mid-2010s. According to the NTC's latest assessment, shared in a classified briefing to congressional leaders and linked today, AQ cells, emboldened by the group's resurgence in Afghanistan and North and Central Africa, have embedded themselves across major urban centers in the U.S. This has been confirmed. Intercepted communications, financial tracking, and human intelligence. Sources tell me this is a sophisticated operation aimed at maximizing casualties and chaos. That certainly sounds rather ominous, but is it true? And as we'll get into later, there will be, foreign tea attacks on the soil of the U.S. But best believe that a lot of the things coming down the pipeline are going to be are going to take place by the government and, these different alphabet agencies as well. That whole situation from 2019 to 2021 was how can I put this? A domestically created situation. And, while there will be major pestilences out here that are going to take people out, what a lot of people drank during 2019 to 2021, hey, you've already got a lot of people, passing out from it. And with whatever's in that stuff, when the powers that be decide to hit certain frequencies or, anything like that, that's going to cause even more people to, drop out here. And then that can be blamed on what? A new pestilence, whether foreign or domestic. And then what can that justify? More lockdowns, more internet censorship, and more mandatory VAXs, as well as other things to show that you're not a detriment to society. And with that situation from 2019 to 2021, what did it lead to? A push for a digital cashless society, CBDCs, you name it, which was the goal of the powers that be, to move us toward that NWO. that fourth industrial revolution, that great Reset, and even more so now, this devil Esau Edom, the so-called white man, is going to move even faster to bring about those things, because he knows that he hath but a short time. As it says in Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, Esau Edom, specifically the elites, is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. They see the nation of Israel, which consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, waking up and coming back to your identity, and they see the prophets out prophesying. So, they're scrambling to try to avert biblical prophecy from coming to its fulfillment and fulfill their agenda. So, while there will be foreign, incidences taking place, don't forget for a second that the GOV is going to be behind a lot of them as well. This is Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 12. I'm going to start at verse 1. And this is speaking to you Israelites. Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. This Edomite, this so-called white man today, is no different than those Edomites from the colonial days that, abused you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And they have a history of using pestilence warfare. Just look at those blankets infected with the SMALLPOX that they gave to you Gadites, or so-called Native Americans. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust had not been altogether wiped away. Doesn't matter how much he marches with you, or is for BLM, or gave you a job, or is your neighbor that you have a barbecue with every other Sunday. That Edomite still has that perpetual hatred in his spirit towards you Israelites. And it's just going to become even more manifest, from the top levels all the way to the lower level Edomites, as America and their rulership as a whole continues to collapse. Set him not by thee, lest when he hath overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Hey, look what happened to the Gadites. Again, the so-called Native Americans. You let this devil, into this country. Some of you taught him how to, cultivate the land. And what? Now you're living on reservations. Lest he seek to take thy seat, and thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with the serpent, or any such as cometh nigh wild beasts? And you know what you're dealing with, especially now that the prophets are out here lining up everything with the scriptures to show you who this devil is and the great wrath that he's about to come down with. So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit. He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood. Here's the main point I wanted to get to in verse 17. If adversity come upon thee, 2019 to 2021, there's this major pestilence out here. Look at who it's affecting. It's mainly affecting so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Thou shalt find him there first. Hey, we need to fast track these juice boxes to these vulnerable communities of color. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. Hey, a lot of you Israelites are coming up with health issues. A lot of y'all have dropped suddenly. And not just even with 2019 to 2021. Look all throughout your history. The civil rights movement, what did that lead to? Feminism, which destroyed our families. The welfare state, which, made the woman strong and independent, where she couldn't have a man in the house if she wanted to receive those benefits. So what? broken families, etc., etc. This devil has a track record of showing you Israelites he's there to help, but then when everything's said and done, you're in even much worse of a position, and it's going to be no different going forward. Before we continue, I'm not going to read any of this. You can take a screenshot of this image and read it for yourself. Like I've been saying, while there will be, foreign T attacks and stuff like that, that's going to affect, American new citizens, a lot of it is going to be orchestrated by the GOV as well. As we can see, 2019 to 2021. Again, if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. Right now, there's a lot of stuff that is being posted on social media that is flat out wrong. That has particularly been true during the past several days. But in this case, what Laura Loomer reported is accurate. According to Reuters, the National Counter-Teaism Center has issued a memo to law enforcement warning of a heightened threat of T attacks. The U.S. National Counter-Teaism Center said on Friday that recent calls by ALQ for attacks against the United States showed the group's enduring threat to the country. ALQ and its Yemen-based affiliate, ALQ in the Arabian Peninsula, are likely seeking to leverage their media publications in global conflicts, particularly where there is U.S. support or military involvement, to inspire potential attackers, it said in a memo to law enforcement. I think that this is entirely possible that we could see some small-scale T attacks in the days ahead. And on what's that show? The Sean Ryan show. He had a lady that was in the CIA named Sarah Adams, who said, coming into these times around the October and the holidays, that there's a high probability of T attacks taking place all across the country. So we'll just have to wait and see. But we know, according to prophecy, that things like that will take place, whether foreign or domestic. But that doesn't alarm me much. What I am far more concerned about is the possibility that Teists could start conducting bioterror attacks. Even the government has admitted that a single bio-T attack could potentially delete millions of U.S. citizens. Hey, the times are coming when they that dwell upon the earth shall be taken in great numbers, not just from pestilences, but the other things we read about in Matthew 24. The following comes from the official website of the NIH. Repeated releases in different parts of the country could be devastating, especially if the public health response were seen as deficient. A large-scale release of agents could be as devastating as a nuclear weapon. For example, a 1993 Office of Technology Assessment report estimated that if 100 kilograms of anthrax spores were released upwind of Washington, D.C. using a crop duster aircraft, there would be between 130,000 and 3 million deaths. It is clear that preventing the proliferation and use of biological weapons or countering them will be extremely difficult. Detection or interdiction of those intended to use biological weapons is next to impossible. Thus, the first evidence of intent to use such weapons will likely be the appearance of sick people in hospital emergency departments. We all saw the panic that a contagious pestilence caused when it started spreading all over the globe in 2020. It would be so easy to cook up something far more deadly, and it would be so easy to release it in a highly populated area. But like I said earlier, hey, a lot of you people are already walking around with something cooked up inside you, just waiting to boil over. And once a really deadly bug starts spreading, we may never know who actually released it. Hey, the devil has come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. There are countless international and domestic tea groups that would love to unleash this sort of a crisis on our society. In addition, we know that the Russians and the Chinese have extremely advanced biotech programs, and don't count out Iran. Over the years, we have been repeatedly warned that they have the ability to create offensive biological weapons. In 1973, Iran signed the Biological Weapons Convention, which it did under the Shah, whose regime ended in 1979. Despite Iran being a part to the BWC, there have been concerns raised about its compliance with its provisions, particularly regarding the potential for offensive biological weapons development. What is known is that Iran has the biotechnology infrastructure, which can be used for a dual-use technology purpose, military purposes, as noted in the U.S. State Department reports on the compliance with weapons of mass destruction-related treaties. Of course, I don't want to leave North Korea out of the list. Earlier this year, it was being reported that the North Koreans continued to maintain a covert biological weapons program in violation of international treaties. Those few paragraphs are pretty much just saying the same thing. It is just a matter of time before someone pulls the trigger on something like this. Hey, all these are just the beginning of sorrows. When it happens, you may have to stay in your home for months. I know that sounds terrible, but it is true. Hey. Whether it be from pestilences, civil unrest, or martial law, expect LOCK downs similar to 2019 to 2021. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 15, verse 17. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. What does that sound like? A LOCK down, a state of martial law, where people are going to be restricted to certain areas, and if you don't have the right identification, you can't move around freely. Yeah. This is just going into, those different countries recognizing a state of Palestine. Like it said, United Kingdom, Canada, and so it was Australia too, and Portugal. Just to correct myself from earlier. As events in the Middle East escalate, that is just going to make it even more likely that we will see tea attacks here in the United States. On Saturday, a pro-Palestinian lunatic yelled "Free Palestine" before opening fire on a wedding reception in New Hampshire. And what did you just have? The information's still fresh with it. A guy go and shoot up a ICE detention facility in Dallas, and they said he was pro-alphabet rights and that his ammunition had a F-ICE on it. A crazed gunman shouted "Free Palestine" before he opened fire on a Nashua, New Hampshire wedding reception and killed one guest, just as the bride and groom were about to start their first dance, according to witnesses. Police have charged Hunter Nadal, 23, with murder after arresting him on Saturday night following the deadly shooting at Sky Meadow Country Club about 40 miles north of Boston. The victim has been identified as Robert Stephen DeCesar, 59. This sort of thing could literally happen anywhere in the country at any moment. From now on, every public event is going to have armed security. We live in a world that is going completely insane, and what we have experienced so far is just the beginning of sorrows, because Shooting up a few people or setting off a bomb at a public event is not even worth comparing to what is eventually coming. Make sure that you, blah, 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 you get it. But hey, coming into some very exciting and dangerous times of prophecy where it's going to be a black swan event after black swan event and pretty much a free-for-all out here. And, you know, like I've been saying throughout the video, a lot of these things that are going to be orchestrated are going to be orchestrated domestically by the GOV and, you know, the powers that be behind the scenes pulling the strings. But at the same time, you know, there will be foreign actors doing the same thing as well. This article's been mentioning what AQ and Iran, and we know that so-called Arab or Ishmaelite and, you know, so-called Iranian or Elamites, hey, they're going to be conducting attacks on U.S. soil. Let's get back to these precepts. This is Jeremiah chapter 51, verses 12 to 14. Set up a standard upon the walls of Babylon. And this is speaking about Babylon the Great, America. Make the watch strong, set up the watchmen, prepare the ambushes. For Yahweh hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon, bringing all these judgments, famines, pestilences, nations rising against nation, you know, etc., etc. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, you know, that can represent, you know, the many different nations of people that are in America. It's known as the melting pot. And when you read Revelation 17, it says that the waters that the whore, you know, Babylon the Great sits upon are many peoples. And then you know what? You've got the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, I correct myself. The Gulf of America to the south. You got the Arctic Ocean to the north. Then you got the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans to the east and the west. O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures. And while America is collapsing, you know, it's been the number one consumer nation on the face of the earth. Thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. We're at the end of America and these Edomites as a whole ruling. Hence, why that devil's about to come down in great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. Yahweh of hosts has sworn by himself, saying, Surely I will fill thee with men as with caterpillars, preparing the ambushes. And during Creepy Joe's administration, what did you have? Those wide open borders where not just Central and South Americans came in, but you had Iranians coming in, Chinese, you know, Russians, Turks, Arabs, etc., etc. And they shall lift up a shout against thee. And, you know, you had, you know, sleeper cells slip in with them. I believe it was a guy from Syria who said, you stupid Americans don't know who I am, but you will know who I am soon enough. There will be, you know, foreign orchestrated attacks on U.S. soil, and they're going to use many means to create terror on these streets. This is 2 Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to read verses 28 to 30. Behold, a horrible vision and the appearance thereof from the east, you know, the so-called Middle East, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia, these Arabs, you know, or Ishmaelites, shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. And what this is talking about is, you know, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat over in the Middle East, really Western Asia, where all these nations are going to fight against each other, you know, mainly against the state of Israel and the U.S., which we'll get a little bit more in this article because of what it say. We should all be hoping for tensions in the region are so high, and pushing for international recognition of a Palestinian state at this time is only going to make things worse. We should all be hoping for peace, but everyone in the region just continues to prepare for more war. That horrible vision from the east. In fact, it appears that Egypt has been conducting a major military buildup in the Sinai Peninsula. Citing U.S. and Israeli officials, the report says Prime Minister Benjamin Milkowski raised the matter with while visiting U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and that the alleged violations include the construction of runways for fighter jets and underground sites that appear to be designed for storing missiles. Israel has asked the United States to pressure Egypt over its military buildup in the Sinai Peninsula. So hey, those tensions are brewing up over there. And just recently I did a video showing how Egypt was pushing for an Arab-style NATO to defend those nations in the region against, 1948 attacks. But back in 2nd Esdras 15, also the Carmanians raging, which is speaking of the Iranians, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them. So the dragons of Arabia, these Ishmaelites, joining up with these Carmanians, are these Iranians, and they shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. On the one hand, their armies attacking, the land of Israel during the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and then on the other hand, that Assyria can represent America, because besides being Babylon the Great in the scriptures, America is also known in some verses as a spiritual Assyria, and them wasting a portion of the land of the Assyrians is what? Teist attacks, sleeper cell attacks on its soil, which, as we saw in that article, there have been ALQ alerts, and he even mentioned Iran with their biotechnology programs. But now I'm going to close it out in 2nd Esdras chapter 16. I'm going to read verses 17 to 23. Woe is me! Woe is me! Who will deliver me in those days? The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the powers shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? So the prophet Esdras is what? Reiterating, Matthew 24 is reiterating what was said here in 2nd Esdras chapter 16. And as it said, the beginning of sorrows, it's only going to get worse from here on out. Behold, famine and plague, pestilences, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Here we see these things brewing and the situation getting bad out here. But the majority of our people still don't want to take heed to the words of the prophets. They still want to go to Uncle Sam for answers. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case. Though that is coming to an end as well. Food and these other creature comforts is prices going up. This cost of living crisis spiraling out of control. And then you've got inflation and shrinkflation, where you're paying more for a decreasing amount of goods. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine. Back in 2nd Esdras chapter 5. Hey, the times are coming when those that dwell upon the earth shall be taken in a great number. And right here it's saying famine is going to be one of the main causes for it. And the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And you getting killed in these race wars, civil unrest, or getting drafted to go fight in World War III. And also these pestilences can be considered a sword, because as we were going into all throughout that article, he was speculating that it's going to be a man-made bio-T thing. So what is that? A man-made weapon, a sword. Verse 23, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them, for the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. Great judgment is quickly coming upon this earth. So like we always tell you, sincere Akim and Akwat out there, hey, now more than ever, you should have all 10 toes down in this truth, doing whatever you can to please Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, so you can have that protective hedge over you for when Jacob's trouble really pops off. But that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwat were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time.